newbies, today what we're gonna do is to add a drop down menu to our bottom to our what code. Good. If you don't understand this source code, kindly refer to our previous video. Okay, let's get started adding what drop down button to your stateful widget. Okay, so first we're gonna have a list of strings. So let's add a variable here. Variable, we call the variable big city, and we're gonna have a list of what strings. Okay, so these strings will be some random cities right in here. So let's say lakeside, okay, comma, we have another city. We say just a random banana island. Okay, then we have another one here, random one, sprinters. Okay, then we have the last one, let's say Shanghai. Okay, Shanghai. Perfect. So we have our list of strings. Good. Then let's add our button drop down right here beneath the text field. Okay, so we call the drop down button widget here, and this is a dynamic widget because it can have a lot of return parameters, but the return parameter here will be a string. Okay, good. So I close this, then I open it very wide. Okay, so what are we gonna add in here? In here, let me do this first. In here, we first going to have a property, and this property will be the value of item. Good. And this item will return, it will not return, but it will be assigned to a map function, or what we call map array. Okay, good. So to do that, we'll call the variable we created with a list of string, that is big city. This is the variable, and then we append it to the map function, map. Okay, so inside the map, let me clear this first. Okay, so with the map, we'll have a string. It will return the list of strings, and then the list of strings will have another another argument value here. We call it drop down item. Okay, let's call it drop down item, and then I close this. Okay, good. So returning a string of an argument, and this function of .map will be return our drop down menu. Okay, so this map will be returning our drop down menu, so we call it the drop down menu item. Okay, let's use this drop down menu item. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so for the drop down menu item, it's also a dynamic widget, and this can return a string as well, and also have other return types. So but here we are using the string values, so we append it to the string return type. And inside this drop down menu, let's have this. Okay, drop down menu. What are we returning? We are returning some properties, and the first property will be the value, and which value? This argument value here, the value, return this argument, and then we have another value. That value will be a child, and that child will be using the test widget to display on our drop down our drop down menu item. So what will be that? That will be this. Ooh. All right, I got it. Okay, good. Then here, in here, perfect. Okay, so now we have our what? Our items mapped to the map function, and then we close that here. Let's terminate this. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, what's next? Now we need to, let me see this. What is this one? No, 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 no. This one, let me check it well. So this is our drop down menu here. Drop down. Okay, perfect. Okay, this is our drop down button. Where is that? Okay, here. Let me check this carefully. Drop down item. Drop down item map. Okay, here, and then we have let's close our drop down. After we close our drop down, now we need to append it to the list. Okay, good. This will help us display our all these strings into a list. Good. And then after that, what do we have to do? We need to also add a handler, and that handler will be the onChanged handler. onChanged, yes, onChanged handler. And this onChanged handler will have a string argument and then a function string argument. Okay, so we return a string, and then this string, what are we going to return? We're going to return a current value. Anytime we run our app, we should have a default a default value displaying before we can select any one of our choice. So to have the default, we need to have another variable where it will hold our default value inside our drop down button. So let's create that default value using another variable. So we call this, let's say, let me name it default. Okay, default value. This will be automatically selected whenever we run our app, so that you will see something on the drop down button. Then you can select any one of your choice. So the name of the default value is this. That is the variable. So we call this inside the onChanged. So we have the dot string, and then another argument of this will be, oh no, I'm very careful of the closing bracket so that we don't miss it out. Okay, good, perfect. So onChanged, it's returning a string, and a string of a variable of default value. So how can this happen? This can only happen when we call the set state. Okay. No, set state. No, we don't have to use the variable here. We need to assign it later on. So I'll add another name here. Let's say default value selected here. This parameter should be assigned to the variable inside the set state. So default variable selected. Then here I call the set state function set state. Okay, set state function, and this will be set state. And for the set state, let's have inside the set state, let's have an anonymous function. Okay, set state, and we'll have an anonymous function here, and this function, and this. Okay, good. Set state, set state. Here we also have a parenthesis here, and we make sure our set state is inside this one. Okay, just like this, inside here. Perfect. Okay, let me also close this one. Let me be careful. We have this set state, set state. This one should be here. Perfect. Okay, let me arrange my codes really well. Okay, good. Perfect. So in here we'll be having what we call the value. So which value? We have the default value selected, and the default value has been assigned to a variable. So how do we do that? We need to do that using what? This keyword, this dot, this dot, the variable default. We call the variable what? The default value. And this default value should be equal to the parameter set up here. This parameter value, this, then we terminate this. Perfect. So that is it, and I run the code. Let's see. Perfect. Ooh. This dot value. Okay, let's see. Lakeside. Okay. Oh, we have a problem here. Let me check it well. So we have the drop. Oh, okay. Our default value is not displaying. When I select, nothing happens. When I select, nothing happens. Why? I got it. Let me check. I got it. Why is it doing so? Because we need to assign the default value to another property called a value. You know, we have one value here. Yeah, this value, we need to have this value here. So by doing that, let me see, where should we put that? Okay, inside the drop down button, we need to have the value in here. Okay, so this drop down, then I put a comma here, comma, then inside the drop down we need to have a value here, value, a property called value, and that value should be what? Our default item. That is this default value here, this one. So our default value should have this value, and then this. Perfect. Now our code should run well. Perfect. But it's like we have Banana Island in here. Let me run this again. Okay, so it's working now. So our default value is what? Lakeside, and then we can select other ones, Spinters, okay, Shanghai, and the rest. But let's see if we change the value here, will it actually change by default on our screen? It's yes. So we can also try this. Let's say we want to use Spinters here instead of Lakeside. Then we put Spinters here. Okay, so I save and then I do hot reload. Good. So as you can see on the screen, the default one will be Spinters. Then you can select the others. All right. So this is the end of the video. So we actually look at how to add what? A drop down button where you can have a list of what? Strings. Good. So this is a very simple one. You watch here. This is the drop down button here. And then inside the drop down, we have the property item, and this item have a variable appended to the map what? The map function, and this map function is returning a string of drop down item, and we return this drop down menu item with a string, and we have two values, one value or two properties. First is the value, that is the drop down item, and then we have the child of what? A test, and the test is also returning the same what? Argument value, that is this drop down. And we now what? Appended it to two lists, and two list function will help us display the strings we have here, the list of string we have. And then this onChanged will help us simply display the default value when when we set the state, and this state is assigned to this dot, the default value, and the default value is actually assigned to the default value selected, which is what? The parameter here. And this default value has been assigned to the value right in the drop down button here. So peace, we are out. If you have any question, you can simply write it in the comment section, and also if you have any recommendation, you can also write it in the comment section. See you next time. Bye bye.